Welcome back to the Ancient Presence Podcast, everybody. Today we have a very special show. We have Christopher Dunn here with us, who we've been looking forward to speaking with for quite a while. He is an engineer with more than 50 years professional experience in precision manufacturing as a machinist, toolmaker, programmer, operator of high-power industrial lasers, project engineer, and laser operations manager, and a human resource director in the aerospace industry. He's a well-known proponent of the theory that an advanced civilization at some point in ancient Egypt developed and utilized advanced technologies, including high-speed stone-cutting machinery, and that the Great Pyramid at Giza perhaps was used as a clean energy harvesting machine to power their civilization. He's written 3 books on the subject titled The Giza Power Plant, Lost Technologies of Ancient Egypt, and Giza, the Tesla Connection. Written over a dozen articles and made numerous TV appearances, including shows like the Travel Channel, the Learning Channel, and the History Channel show Ancient Aliens. Also joining us today is the Egyptian engineer Ahmed Adly, who is a supporter of Chris's work and is well-known in Egypt as a proponent of the theory of an advanced civilization with high technology that would rewrite the history of ancient Egypt as we know it. So, guys, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Chris, how are you?
I'm just fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. And Ahmed,
Good.
how are you? Welcome.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay. So let's get into it. Let's share a bit of our background as to how we got to where we are, and then we can get into some nitty-gritty details later on in the show. But Chris, why don't you start off? We'll give you the floor, and you can open up and share how you came to this point in your career and how you've made your discoveries and done the research that led you to this point.
Yeah, it's been a quite a long path, sometimes tortuous path, but it's I I began as an apprentice, as I said, and so I cut my teeth in the tool shops in Manchester, England, and also in the States. I emigrated here in 1969. And as you mentioned, 52 years in the manufacturing industry. So I first connected with the ancient Egyptian artifacts through Peter Tompkins' book when I was studying that, and that led me to William Flinders Petrie's work and many other authors. And I was developing a theory about the Great Pyramid. Based on the features that I thought were very striking to me at the time, and that was that the Great Pyramid was more precise than what we would normally require for a structure that's built even today, and that the interior design resembled more a machine than a building for inhabitation or for the living or dead. And then, of course, there seemed to be a growing number of people who were questioning the tomb theory. And so at that time, I started to question the tomb theory myself, and eventually concluded that there wasn't enough evidence to prove it. So from that, in my research, I started to connect with the manufacturing aspects of the artifacts in Egypt, including what Petrie had written about in his book Pyramids and Temples of Giza, and one of the most remarkable artifacts that I had studied there was the famous granite core number 7, and I wrote an article that appeared in Analog magazine, science fiction, science fact magazine. It was published as a fact article in case anybody has any doubts, but the article received, I would say, limited attention. I think the circulation of the magazine at that time was about 500,000, but they had readers all over the world, and most of the articles were written by scientists and futurists, so it was a very well-respected magazine. Of course, it was a very controversial article because I had studied what Petrie had described as an artifact that had a spiral groove wrapped around the perimeter of it, and with a feed rate of 100 thousandths of an inch that he described. And so working just on that information itself as a manufacturer, I was trying to determine what kind of methods could actually create that phenomena on a piece of granite. And in consulting with some of my peers, the fellow engineers, tool and die makers, I concluded, or I suggested, it seemed that it might be probable that they were using sonic machining, which is a process where a vibration causes the cutting action on the granite, and the rotation of a tool or a tube would actually advance the tool into the workpiece. It's kind of like a screw, and that would leave that impression on the granite. Obviously, a very controversial theory that is still controversial today. So that's that part of it, and from there, so many trips to Egypt, including the going to the Serapeum, which was that was a rushed and hurried kind of excursion from the Cairo out to Saqqara, with permission from Zahi Hawass in 2001. That wasn't the first time I'd been into that facility. I first entered the rock tunnels in 1995, when Graham Hancock was creating a documentary with Netherlands Television for his book Fingerprints of the Gods. And so I wasn't a part of the filming in the tunnels at that time, but I did go into the tunnels and jump down into one of the crypts and remarked how precise the boxes in the Serapeum were. Now, on the issue of precision, I had with me at the time, let me explain how I came to have those instruments with me. In 1986, when I went to Egypt, I had nothing with me except a 35 millimeter camera. But as I was walking around the Giza Plateau and I was looking at some of the granite work that was laying around there, it was remarkable to me, and it seemed to have an extraordinary quality to it. Sharp angles on granite casing stones on Khafra's pyramid. Some of them just laying around on the south side, others in situ, but they did seem to have an extraordinary flatness and sharpness to the corners. And so I vowed at that time, the next time I come to Egypt, I would bring something that I could actually see just how precise these artifacts were. And that's what led me in 2001 into the Serapeum with a 14-inch toolmaker square, which was quite precise, calibrated to within 50 millionths of an inch, and a straight edge that was calibrated to within 1/10 thousandths of an inch. So I only had like 5 minutes in that period of time, and the director of the site was with me, as well as his inspector, and Gail Fallon from Grizzly Adams, who was doing some filming. So that was it. It was not a fully organized inspection routine, if you will. It
And
was
what year was this again? What year?
2001. It was
Yeah.
in September 2001.
Mhm.
If you look at the metadata on those photographs that were taken at that time, you would see the date as being September 2001.
Mm.
So the photographs are authenticated. The person who was taking the photographs was Gail Fallon, and the director and the inspector were witnesses to it. So if you look at that photograph, which is a copyrighted photograph, by the way, you'll see that it's all over the internet. And I've always had a philosophy that, you know, this it's an honor and a privilege for me to go into Egypt and to be able to gather information and provide a point of view. But I've never had an ownership, if you will. The artifacts belong to the ancient Egyptians. The information that you gather from them belongs to the Egyptians, and you know, and the world by extension. It's important that information is shared. So I don't pursue copyright issues. I share my photographs freely. There was a time where they were abused, and I objected to it because there was a promoter of tours who was using my photographs to promote his own tour. So I've always said that for educational purposes, educating people, and they're free to use them. But if you're going to use them for commercial use, then that's a different matter altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's basically it. If we continue with that particular day and that experience, I've got to say that I was shocked to find the level of precision that I did with the instruments that I took. I was absolutely shocked. Now, I knew going into that box, the one with, you've been in there, right? You know, the one I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And I know Ahmed does. It's the one with the broken corner. Well, you can see on the outside, there is no attempt to finish the outside precisely, right? No attempt whatsoever. And so the concentration was on just the inside of the box. And as I've come to understand since then, is that there are different levels of finish on different parts of the box, of an individual box, from one box to another. It seems to me, from my perspective, working in manufacturing, that you have, you know, like you have a rough box. In manufacturing, when we were manufacturing artifacts, you would rough machine, finish, and semi-finished machine, and then finished machine. They all have different levels of accuracy, and it seemed that there was a corollary between the boxes and my experience in manufacturing. And so the issue of perfection is it seems to have been blown all out of proportion in my view, and that is that when a person is going through a tool and die shop, and they talk to a tool maker and say, "How's that die doing?" and the tool maker will say, "Oh, it's perfect." Well, you know, if you lecture them on the impossibility of anything being perfect, you won't be very well respected or liked, and you probably won't last very long, right? It's just shop talk. So it's the vernacular of the trade, if you will. And I know that in the objections to my work, there have been objections to the use of the word perfect, because then, you know, that has seemed to have stimulated a whole effort to find areas in the box that are not so perfect. And then, of course, to actually focus more on the imperfect aspects of the boxes than the perfect or the more accurate aspects of them. But one does not cancel out the other. The question is which one is the most important? So we can talk a little bit more about that. I feel like I've talked for too long right now, and I want to give you guys a chance. So
Yeah.
off you go.
Well, great. Thanks for, giving us a little introduction there. I also know that a lot of our audience is probably quite familiar with your work. I'm sure a lot of our people watching this channel maybe have even read some of your books and stuff too. So it's nice to hear more of an explanation and, where you've come from. Ahmed, do you want to take a moment and fill us in? We don't know so much about you. It's the first time we've ever spoken like this, so maybe you can give us a little bit of a background as to how, what are your general thoughts on this topic?
I grown up in Egypt, and like everyone, we studied history in the school, the traditional history about pyramids, about ancient Egypt. And at that time, I was working in a global telecom beside the pyramids. So I every day go and pass back and forth beside it. And then, the team theory, it was dominating the main narrative. And then I didn't pay much attention, to be honest, to the Egyptian monuments at that time. Then by 2013, I came across a video at Karnak Temple where the narrator was describing a cord drill and say that it is very hard to achieve this with just and shape it with only a couple of tools. It takes a lot of time. And he was discussing many points like Serapeum, like pyramids and so on. At that time, I still like, okay, this make a trigger at my head. And then after that, I decided to buy books, different books from both streams. So I have most of Dr. Zahi Hawass and Mark Lehner books here in my library. And also I decided to buy Christopher Dunn books and Robert Bhopal, Robert Schoch. Mm-hmm. So I would like to have a wide idea about what they are talking about. And when I start to read about it, mainly Giza Power Plant and the technology of ancient Egypt, I started to challenge it. So not just like, okay, but so for example, I went to Luxor and I start to talk to the workshops there. Like, guys, is this really hard to achieve in this way? I mean, if you want to build a statue like this, or is it really very hard to achieve it like and with copper chisels or stone chisels? And start to listen to these answers, right? So yeah, sometimes some people, and they are actually a professional sculptors there. So they did their entire life working either, of course, working with just their pure hands is now go less more and more, but they were using power tools. But they have the experience. They are sensitive to the stone. And start to get the answer, and then okay, that it's really very hard to achieve it with just the normal tools or the primitive tools, and especially in that time. So if you want to build something in months, no, in this way it takes years and so on. And then I went to Serapeum one day, and I visited like several times, but one time I decided to apply some measures. So I used my my laser measurement tool with the reflector. The cat is there. And then I
He's a great guy.
Start to I submit, by the way, for that to take a detailed measurement. I submit 2 permission requests to MOA. Ministry of Antiquities, and the boss was rejected. So
Really?
because they
Huh.
said you are individual. Second time I apply it, but with part of organization, it was also rejected. So I took the permission from the guard there. I want to apply some measures there. So he say, okay, but don't take much time, and we defined the box. And I
So
found that
basically, a little bit of bakshish goes a long way in Egypt, huh?
correct. And what I found that I already described this in one of my videos, and that achieving this is really very hard. So I found that there is a true parallelism in that granite box, and when I offered that to some production engineers, we think about, okay, what way they have achieved to, what way they have built to achieve this. It is not something like straightforward or easy, especially if you look to the hardness of the stones and the size of the box. So by the way, I have also some challenges from other people. So some people said, yeah, it's possible to be done. And then when we went to Serapeum and he analyzed it by himself, he said, okay, sorry, I withdraw my word. I need to rethink again. So some people are really, if you assess it yourself in details, take the proper time, and then you will come into a conclusion that there must be something different used. And then I publish about 15 videos called The Lost Civilization, and now it is like well-known video series, and this is where all I come from.
Nice. Cool. Well, that's good to know. Nice to get to know your background more. Casey, you want to take it next?
Yeah, so thank you both for sharing your work and joining us. And, I think it's what I really respect about this situation is I think you are both coming into this knowing that we may disagree about some things. I mean, we made a whole series on the Serapeum and a three-part series that kind of outlined why we disagree. And the fact that you're willing to get together with us and talk about this is like really commendable. And I think this is something that is rare in the community right now. And I think it's really valuable to all of us to have these conversations and to like really get to like we're not at war, and we can actually explore these ideas in ways that is respectful and like actually treat one another as like, we're doing our best to uncover the truth of what really happened here. And so thank you guys for trusting us enough to do this. And so like my journey has been very much, in regards to Egypt and our studies and why we started our channel was very much, I think, rooted in the work of Christopher Dunn and Graham Hancock and John Anthony West and Schwaller de Lubeck's and all these people that really made us think outside the box and made us question a lot of the narratives that we had grown up with. And I think that's a necessary part of the whole process is to like really evaluate what we've been taught and what we've been programmed and what, we've kind of inherited from our teachers and whatnot. So that was the main impetus for us going to Egypt and documenting it, is to really show the evidence for a lost civilization and for the lost technology. And in our travels and in our speaking with different archaeologists and experts around, we started to kind of almost poke holes in our own question, in our own reasoning. And after we left the Middle East and started working on more videos and connecting with the community, and we were introduced to other channels, we started to kind of see how a lot of our assumptions and ideas of these things not being possible by the dynastic Egyptians were potentially wrong, and seeing experiments like what Sacred Geometry Decoded and Scientists Against Myths are doing, we started to see that working these very hard stones like granite and diorite can actually be done with primitive tools in ways that we were not really expecting. And so over time, we just slowly started to, I guess, maybe transition back into a more academic perspective of what happened in Egypt and the dynastic Egyptian history, and started to see claims of lost ancient high technology and a lost civilization as less plausible to us. And we really came at it from this position of like wanting that to be true and like really believing it wholeheartedly. I mean, you can see in our old videos on our channel, like we kind of built our whole channel around trying to prove that. And so we're still in the question, of course, and I don't think anyone on the planet really knows what happened. You know, of course, we're all separated from that culture by thousands of years now, and so um, I think it's important that these questions came up, and I think the work that you've done, Christopher, has brought these questions to a greater population. Like, more people are talking about the Serapeum now. I doubt people would even be talking about the Serapeum if it wasn't for you. And so the fact that you did that work brought attention to it, and now there's a global conversation happening. And whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't really matter in that sense of like, we're all, you know, in this conversation about something that is important in my eyes, and that's thanks to your work. So I guess that's,
Well, I greatly appreciate that. Thank you, Casey.
yeah.
And and indeed, you know, regardless of what your background is, what your beliefs are, and I think the Serapeum is one of the most important sites in Egypt, and
I fully
more
agree.
people who go see it, the better, and the better for the Egyptians because
Yeah.
you know it draws a lot of tourists.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
just to wrap up my thing on that is like, I totally agree that the Serapeum is an incredible site, one of the most important sites in Egypt, and has the highest craftsmanship work of any place I've really ever been. And the boxes themselves are truly astounding works of art. And I believe they were done with primitive tools found in the archaeological record of the dynastic Egyptians. So that's kind
Okay.
of my
What is your background, Casey?
my background is I went to college for applied computer graphics, so doing graphic design. I have a little bit of drafting experience, a little bit of like animation experience, but now it mostly after college started to go into graphic design, videography, photography.
That's why you make such great videos,
Thank you.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think so. It has nothing to do with Milo.
So,
Okay.
Chris, you like our videos?
I think you do. I think you do an excellent job at putting videos together for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously we have differences of opinion, and but you know, I have questions, but Milo, you need to talk about your path, and I'm assuming
Yeah.
you and Casey are you're on the same path and reaching the same conclusion. So I'm kind of curious about your background.
Yeah, Casey and I are quite synchronized in that. Well, honestly, I've always wanted to share this on our YouTube channel. It started for me when I was like 18, where a friend of mine, he learned that my last name is Hapgood. And he said,
Oh.
Hapgood, Hapgood. And he thought about it. He said, I have a book, wait. And he pulled out Fingerprints of the Gods, and he opened up the first page and started talking about Charles Hapgood and Graham Hancock. And I was just enamored immediately from being about, maybe I was 19, but just out of high school, pretty early on in my young adult days, and was immediately just like super fascinated about ancient history. And I always knew that I'd be, wanting to travel the world. And so pretty early on in my early 20s, I started traveling a lot and have been very much a nomadic wanderer of this world. And Casey too. I mean, we met, both of us, like in a very travel immersed periods of our lives. We spent a lot of time together in like Mexico and in Peru and South America and Guatemala. And we started realizing that we're both interested in ancient archaeological sites. And I was really, really interested in it from the angle of the Graham Hancocks. And eventually I learned about your work, Chris. And yeah, like Casey said, we were both very much, we were so fascinated in the subject that eventually we realized we wanted to make a YouTube channel and like go to Egypt and stuff. And so we'd been talking about it and just building up all this motivation until the point came where it's like, okay, we just have to go to Egypt now. And so we went there with our minimal amount of filmography equipment and just went on a full-blown Egypt and Jordan, Turkey, Lebanon trip and just filmed everywhere we could. We went to Baalbek. We spent time in Sinai. We didn't go in Egypt farther south than Aswan. Almost regrettably, we didn't see like Abu Simbel, but we saw as much as we could in Egypt with the time that we had in the moment. And we started making videos, and we were full on like, yay, let's promote the idea of a lost civilization in prehistory, a forgotten chapter. We were like really excited about doing that. And then our first videos were very much promoting the works of Robert Schoch and Graham Hancock, talking about the origins of the Sphinx, perhaps dating back 12,000 years or earlier. And we started getting comments on our videos like, hey, good work, but, check out this, because we might actually have some evidence that disproves that. And so we said, okay, we'll check it out, and we started like thinking about maybe we might be wrong about this, we might be wrong about that. And we made videos about tennis and the gigantic, 100-foot tall statues of pharaohs. They were perhaps the largest statues ever made in history. And it was mind-boggling for us. We were so interested in the subject. We interviewed the lead archaeologist in tennis when we were there. And we even like questioned him about the Sphinx maybe being 12,000 years old. And he kind of like butt heads with us a little bit and almost said like, buzz off, like he didn't really want to deal with us, getting in his face about it. By the way, sorry about this light that I have here. I'm in a windy yurt and the light keeps flickering, so my bad. I hope it's not distracting.
Looks like the Giza Plateau in the background, but you're in Crete though, right?
Yeah, I'm in Crete and it's windy here. And
so, what are you doing in Crete? Are you on vacation or?
No, I'm living here. I've been here for like the last 6 months. I mean, like I said before, I'm a nomadic wanderer, so I have been traveling and living all around the planet and following the road wherever it brings me.
And I'm taking this call from Dendera, the Temple of Hathor, as you can see. So.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I recognize those columns. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ahmed's calling us from the void.
Yes.
Chris,
I'm calling you from my garage.
Nice. But yeah, so yeah, it's been hot like that here too, even hotter, like 100 plus. But yeah, so just to finish off my little bit here, eventually we got to a point where our video production focus and direction just started to slide and turn into a whole new direction. And we met Ben from Uncharted X and the Brothers of the Serpent and Randall Carlson on a tour in the Scablands in Washington and Oregon. And we had a great time meeting those guys, and we could tell we were starting to like kind of branch away from, like, we still had a lot of shared ideas with them, especially about the geological history, that maybe the Younger Dryas produced a cataclysmic episode that may have wiped out a chapter of prehistory that, you know, has been lost in the archaeological record, perhaps of an advanced civilization. And so we were spending time with those guys and like playing music and having a great time, and, you know, like really wanting to bond and get to know some more members of the community of this kind of YouTube ancient alternative archaeological world. But we started to kind of just take a harder turn from there, because we just kept finding more and more evidence that we were feeling was really disproving our previous ideas about prehistory. And so, Chris, we went deep into your work. We went deep into your work on the Serapeum, for example, and we did a deep dive. We translated Mariette's book into English using Google Translate, which took like many hours of copy and paste. It was like a mind-bending experience. And we read for the first time, you know, what did Mariette originally write about the Serapeum? And we started to realize that there's so much more that people don't really ever talk about, because his book isn't widely available in English. When we spoke with David Miano, you know, his universities told him to learn French to read those books. So I don't even know if there is like a published English version, but we went deeper into there, and we started reading the books of Baptiste Combe and Heinrich Bruch and like all kinds of old archaeologists from the 1800s, and realizing there's much more to the story about the Serapeum than what we see today. Because of course you can go there today and study what's visibly available, but we realized actually there's so much that is not present there in the site anymore. It's been all shipped off to museums. And some of the ancient, you know, like the lesser galleries, the older gallery is actually closed down, so you can't go in there, and you don't really see the doorways. So there isn't really the story. You can't see the story of the different entrances and the chronology of how the Serapeum developed over time. And so eventually we got to the works of David Roll and Mohammed Ibrahim and other people of that field. We learned about some really interesting things about the Serapeum's chronology that just started to make us feel like there's no possible way that a pre-dynastic civilization could have made the Serapeum. It absolutely was documented in the hieroglyphic records of 1,300 or so stone stelae, which gave the details of the lives of the bulls, which pharaoh they were born under. There's even many stelae documenting the extension of tunnels, the digging and excavating of new chambers, and how long it took to build a box and even bring it into those chambers. And we realized, wow, like it's all there. We just don't see it, but it's all this historical evidence. It was documented in some 7,000 artifacts. And we were listening to people like Yusuf Awayan, who we met in Egypt and had a great talk with him. We thought he was a great guy. But he says, you know, the chronology of and the reason why it's called the Serapeum and why it's dedicated to Osor Apis, this Egyptian god, was based on kind of more or less 4 of the inscriptions on the 4 stone boxes, which are there visible today. And then we realized he's incredibly wrong about that, because there were some 7,000 other artifacts, and many of those were inscribed dedications to Osor Apis, and told of the chronology of the Apis and the burials and even the priestly, you know, ceremonies that were done, and even the lineage of the priests involved. And there's so much information. And I eventually really just came to the conclusion that it was absolutely done by the dynastic Egyptian civilization. And the evidence is all there to prove it. And so I'd like to turn this back to Chris, if you want to maybe respond to some of what I'm saying. First of all, I'm curious, have you seen our full 3-part breakdown video series on the Serapeum? And, you know, do you think that the advanced technological capabilities that you believe existed in our ancient history originated with the dynastic Egyptian civilization, or did it come from a civilization that came perhaps long before them that isn't exactly documented in any historical way?
The answer to your first question is yes. I watched your 3-part series. to answer your second question, I will say that from my perspective, as far as the Serapeum, we have additions today to the tunnels that are confusing people. And so you get comments like, "Oh, you couldn't turn the box and put them in those alcoves or those crypts," when before they made improvements in the tunnels, those openings to the crypts were much wider, and now you have these I-beam structures and then this dressed stone that has closed off or reduced the size of the opening to the crypt. So there is that. That's a modern addition in the last, I would say, 20 years. I was there in 2003, and they were working on that at that time. And so that is an addition. We can't credit these changes that have happened in the Serapeum. We can't credit that with the originators of the site. Would our archaeologists 10,000 years in the future look at that and see it as contemporaneous with the whole site? I don't know. But what I would say is that, to me, as a manufacturer, the best evidence and the most important evidence within the Serapeum are the boxes themselves. That is the best evidence. That evidence is, to me, is the most. I would say that it could not be what you would call intrusive evidence, or be introduced into the site thousands of years after the boxes were made. I would actually introduce a little doubt as to the contemporaneous relationship between all the stelae and the boxes, and so I would introduce just a little bit of doubt, because I don't think those steles are the best evidence. And I think that when you have you have a site that's like the Serapeum, and you take all the extraneous material out that is easy to move, it's easy to move in, it's easy to move out. You take it all out, and you just focus on the structure and the tunnels and the boxes themselves. So I know that is probably would not be a popular idea with archaeologists or Egyptologists, and I understand that. But when it comes to sorting out what is the best evidence and what supports an argument as to how that evidence came to be, then relying on what is lying in the vicinity to introduce that to support your conclusion may actually weaken it. It's because, it's like the pyramids themselves, right? You have different, or any site around the world where you have different cultures who perform work, and then they leave the area. Something happens, they leave. Another civilization, another culture moves into the area, and then the evidence of the previous culture is corrupted in some way. It's changed. That's just a fact of life. It's like the guy who built my house. If somebody in the future came to look at my house and credited everything that had been done to it to the original builder or the last builder, they would be wrong. It's been altered in numerous ways, and from what I understand, from people with different skill levels. So anyway, that's my opinion of the Serapeum. I understand that it's a lot of work that you go through to do a deep dive into the source literature. You did a fantastic job. You got the Marriott's paper translated and available online, and then you basically are basing your conclusions on the first person, or one of the most notable people, first people that went into the Serapeum and started to document what was there. And that's certainly very valuable. But I know also that sorry?
Well, I wouldn't say that we're basing our opinions solely on that. I mean, there's been a continual analysis of his work. But the stone stelae, for example, are just one way that those hieroglyphics were inscribed into something. There's also hieroglyphics inscribed onto the stone boxes themselves that literally say, this is the first time that a stone sarcophagi has been dedicated for the Apis bull that has been made in a costly stone like granite or granodiorite. I'll
let Ahmed address that particular subject.
And I can actually show a slide of that if we want to look at it.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Ahmed.
Yeah, let's look at it.
Okay, but Ahmed, you can while I find the photo, you can go ahead.
Going to that, so I also go through a Marriott book. So I bring the book. Since I don't know French, I send it to an person to translate it, and it costs me a portion. So before preparing it, I read Marriott book, and also we translated many steles and boxes directly from hieroglyphs, because I noticed that some steles and some hieroglyphs was not accurately translated actually from different videos. For example, very specific word that causes a lot of confusion, the word er or eret, which usually simply translated to made. He made a box. So when they said, no, actually the accurate meaning is dedicate. It's sometimes used for made, but you should also address the other. So it is present, it is provide a gift, it is dedicate. So it doesn't necessarily and only doesn't mean a made, but it also provide other meanings. And you will find this in assemblies and amazes on both boxes. You can continue as you're already sharing.
Yeah, this is I think this is from the work of Batiscombe Gunn. This is the lid. You can't see the greatest view, but this is the lid from the box of Amasis, which is according to the chronology would be the first stone sarcophagi that was made here in the Serapeum. So it says there, King Amasis dedicated his monument to the living Apis, a great sarcophagus of granite. Now his majesty found that it had not been made in a costly stone by any king at any time, that he may be the one who was given life forever. And as again,
so the word again, I'm sorry for interruption, but again, the word made is er.
Yeah, so made would be dedicated, had not been dedicated.
Yeah, exactly. So or presented or provided. So it is the same. And by the way, don't believe what I'm saying. You can by yourself go to dictionary like Vegas dictionary or like Gardner dictionary and search for the different meanings. You'll find that there are different meanings for the word. And yeah, this gives a view. And also the stela, because I noticed that the stela that you will, I know that there is a stela for Amasis, but when we refer back to these steles and Salim Hassan, most of these steles or many of these steles were written not during Amasis time, but from Darius actually. So he like was recording that what was happened um, in the Serapeum, Darius by himself. That's why you may find that there are similarities, strange similarity in the text itself, as if it is a template. So if you compare, for example, Amazes with Kambis, or as you call it, Sambis, you'll find very close similarity in the text, as if it is just like certain template.
That would be this box here,
yeah.
which let me get to there. That's the inscription on the box for Cambyses. Again, it says the same thing: a great coffin of granite. So now that's three different artifacts in the first two boxes that were, according to the official chronology, two of the first two boxes that were made. We have three separate inscriptions there. This one, let me go back. This one,
So
on this stele, and this one here, that are all explaining the same thing. That these are the first two boxes made out of costly stone for the Apis bull.
but Ahmed, you're saying that because of the confusion around the translation of the word made, it's actually dedicated. So you're saying that somebody in the future generations kind of dedicated that stone that was already
yeah,
made.
of course. I think this is a possibility. So it is not necessarily like he invented from scratch. By the way, I'm not also. I just want add a couple of things. I know that dynastic Egyptian did fantastic things, right? But I'm talking specifically about this. This error is not accurate concept to made, so it can be dedication, and yeah, it is very famous word in the hieroglyphs. Yeah.
Do you think that discrepancy among that translation of that word is enough to discredit the whole idea? I mean, because from my opinion, there's so much other evidence. This is just the first couple inscriptions. There's many, many, many other things that I think are, in my opinion, basically indisputable from my perspective. That's my opinion about it from how I've studied the evidence. But these are just a few inscriptions so far. When you look at the timeline, the chronology of all the different chambers which were built, which, by the way, if I just kind of hit the down button here.
Oh, he
hit the exit button.
He pushed the wrong button, I guess.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Am I back?
Yeah,
sorry about that.
You pushed the wrong button, it seems, huh?
No, it was a Wi-Fi connection. You can't really tell. I'm in a full-on windstorm. I hope you can't hear the audio going. It's like I'm in this tent. Everything's blowing. That's why I have the Giza background. Anyway, sorry. Wi-Fi.
Are you recording again?
I believe it didn't stop recording.
Okay.
Yeah, it's recording. Yeah, sorry again about the light flickering. Let me get back to where I was there. So, like I said, if I go through all these different slides that I have available here, you can see a full timeline of which of these chambers were made in which time period by which king, and there were many different stelae and artifacts that support the chronology, like chamber by chamber, sarcophagus by sarcophagus, apis bull by apis bull, that are documented with many supporting inscriptions on different artifacts for hundreds and hundreds of years that document the entire chronology. So if there's a discrepancy among the translation of a word, say that it was made or dedicated to an apis bull, in my opinion, that's just a very small factor involved in a bigger body of evidence. And like I said, if I just push through here, we could even go through if my computer will work. And like here, for example, this was the second staircase which was made. Do you guys know about this? I mean, you would have seen it in our third part of our Serapeum video series. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, the hallway here was blocked by the sarcophagus of Cambyses, which was intended for that chamber, and so that's why they had to make a secondary staircase. And here's the original staircase in yellow that would have come down here and enter into the older galleries down here. And then there's even documented in the time of Samtik that says he opened a new gallery, which would have been here, this doorway, which would have gone south and then into an east-west axis, you know, where they describe like emerging from the passage of the ancestors, they opened a new gallery, basically because the roof had collapsed. And you can see the timeline here that eventually then, because Cambyses' box was blocking the hallway, they had to make a new door here. And in order to do that, they had to cut through the original staircase, which is hard to describe, hard to explain that bit of evidence if you're not, you know, basing it off of the chronology recorded in all of the hieroglyphs. So the original entrance there's the new entrance. Then you can see the photo here where they cut right through there, and it left, like, they said it's a 10-meter drop. I think it doesn't look like that tall to me. And actually, we took a photo standing above there. Here's again, like the original entrance would have gone down this staircase, and then here where my mouse is, and here they cut this new entrance. And none of that would have made any sense unless we're following the official chronology. Here's a photo that we took. We are standing above that 10-meter drop-off, by the way, and this is the original entrance into the Serapeum, the old galleries. And yeah, here's another view of some of that stuff. Here's on the right here where the arrow is, this is the second doorway that was created. Behind that door is this box for Cambyses, which now is just blocking the door. And, you know, some people speculate that box was too big to move around the corner. I think maybe they thought it was cursed because Cambyses was a Persian ruler who, like, there are stories that are controversial whether he killed the bull or he stabbed it or sliced its leg. But anyway, I think maybe they just left that box there and decided to build a new door instead, which would have been here, which is, you know, would have led into putting a burial there. And a couple of chambers later, there's that doorway. A couple of chambers later is when you get to the first stone sarcophagus, which, you know, is this one that says Amasis. They dedicated the first stone sarcophagus ever to a bull. And then you can just follow from there, the chronology all along. This bull here apparently died a young life. And so they had to make the box in a quick time period. They didn't have enough time to really like perfect it. So you could say because the bull died a young life, that's why its chamber was small and why the box wasn't done to such a high level of precision. And on from there, you know, I feel like there's just perfect explanations based on the archaeological evidence for every single chamber in the entire Serapeum.
I mean, there's so many points here to talk about, but in general, so first of all, I don't mind if there is any kind of renovation, changes, tunnel digging, moving of leads or even boxes sometimes from time to time based on needs. Because this is we see clearly in Giza, right? So it is very clear in Giza that we see these kind of changes. Second, about the chronology of the boxes. So we have a problem here that, you know, only 4 boxes have written inscriptions. 3 of them have names, and the other are not. And I know that in my box it was not very clear for me, because I think that was in the beginning of Egyptology, 1950 something, 1951. That there are many things that is not accurate. So, for example, this when we say that Ptolemy 5 or 6 is mapped to this exact box, why this exact box? Because not every time that the stela is found inside. Yeah, sometimes we find it inside, like Amasis, but not in all cases. So there is in many of these boxes, I would say most of them are actually, there is some, I would say, I don't want to say guess, but as like as best as they could deliver a connection between the box and the stela. And if you go to the very first person who started the Serapeum, the Grand Gallery, he was Basmatic, right? So when we refer to the stele of Basmatic, he say Then His Majesty gave orders to make renovation in his temple. So he is the first one, and he mentioned renovation, although he is the first one, so it should be new. It was made more beautiful than it had been before. Okay, I know some people will say, okay, he meant the lesser gallery, and he renovated, so he make a grand gallery. What caused other confusion for me that, okay, where is the box of basmati? So he just he just dig it and leave it, or would there a plan for boxes for what was actually the long-term plan for it? So like everyone like put a box and
well, in that time they would have just been using wooden sarcophagi. And there is the chamber there. There is a depression in the floor where they could have put a nice wooden sarcophagus.
Yeah, so it gives you the feeling that it was like somehow ad hoc, right? Like Basmati started, and then Amazes had the idea, okay, let's put a large giant grand box. It was not planned from the beginning, which is a little bit strange for me. Then the next is of course, I think Mariette stated clearly that that he have not found nothing, because I know this is also a debateful point, and until today there's many Egyptian resources say that he found something. No, he stated clearly, like other than he mentioned clearly, explicitly, other than the boxes and the stela, nothing had been found there. So no bolts has been found, and no remains has been found. By the way, I don't against the idea that it was reused for bull or for mummification. I'm not against it, but he didn't found, and even many boxes was not used. So this smaller box with a badge or kabasha, it was found also that that box was not used. So I'm here reading the source of Brooks, that he mentioned that the lids and the box have never come together. That one, yeah. Exactly. So an inscription was written for something that had never been used. This is what that also causes some confusion for that. Why it is inscribed when no ball was used for it? And this is also not my opinion. It is Brooks, which is well-known Egyptologist. So it's hard to of course, if someone is convinced with a certain idea, it's up to him. But what I see with Serapeum, it has the same problem.
Can you clarify, please? You're saying that this box was not used for a bull, and is that you mentioned that the lid was found like around the corner?
I will read the exact statement. So Brooks said that the sarcophagus itself standed in the northern gallery leading to epistomes, while the lid lies in the ground. So before the reparations by the Antiquities, Ministry of Antiquities, this lid was not on top; it was down.
Yeah, it was like I think it was here. I have another photograph somewhere. It was kind of just nearby.
Exactly. So while the lid lies on the ground in the south gallery, the two were never brought together to enclose the bull or the deceased bull. The lid, so it was never over each other's. So this means if we put a bull, it would just we didn't put the lid on top of it. And this is also
what makes you think that the lid was never on it? What makes you draw the conclusion that the lid was never on it?
Conclusion for Brock, it was not from my conclusion. It's Brock who stated that.
Well, his conclusion was that it was found, the lid was found nearby, but that I don't think he ever made the claim that the lid was never on it.
I can share it. It is just in front of me. It is a page 429. Yeah, sure.
As far as I understood, there was some other stele that described that bull as having a young life, and that's perhaps why they made it smaller and why they just kind of put it there in that unused tunnel in kind of an awkward position,
Does he
and
have
why it
permission to
wasn't
share?
as do I need to give you permission to share?
I can post it in the picture in the chat if you want, or you can share it. So
Yeah, just share your screen, huh?
okay.
Oh, shared a file. How do I do this? By the way, sorry guys about this light flickering. I don't know what to do about it.
I haven't even been noticing it.
Okay, good. It's just flashing all the time.
Let me just
And Chris, have you been much interested in all this chronology aspect of the site?
yeah.
My natural skepticism kind of drives me in the opposite direction, I'm afraid. The skepticism about when a hieroglyph or a scripture has been applied to an artifact, and whether it is actually contemporaneous or an accurate description of what the artifact is. So, you know, I mean, you can alter photographic evidence, you can alter physical evidence. But because of my background and my connection with precision machining and accuracy, none of what has been described as I've read it and heard you describe it, none of what has been described actually addresses the production of those artifacts. And I know through your videos that you have done a deep dive into the different methods. You've cited Dennis Stark's work on drilling. You've also had a short piece on the creation of a corner, chipping out a square corner, and then from there you expand that to say that all that can explain the finishing of the inside of these boxes. You've also brought up the Whitworth three-plate lapping method, which I'm familiar with, and it was a part of my apprenticeship to do actually to lap plates. And so, you know, I'm fully aware of what it takes to create flat surfaces. And I disagree with your conclusion that based on those limited efforts that that would explain the entire box. With respect to the corruption of evidence, I'd like to share my screen if I may.
Yeah, so this is one thing I wanted to get into before Ahmed, you shared this is maybe we're getting into the weeds with this. Like I personally feel like this all to me proves that it was a dynastic Egyptian creation, the Greater Galleries, because of the staircases and because of the stele and all of it together considered.
Okay.
That each of the individual things themselves, yeah, maybe it could be faked and like a lot of it could be like mistaken for further like appropriation of like for later people. But I think all of it taken together in terms of like the staircase, the stele, the fact that we've seen that, you know, these things can be produced using primitive tools, like all of it taken together to me is like Occam's razor of like this is the most plausible conclusion to draw from that, from the evidence that we have.
Yeah, of course. Again, so it is up to you. I saw the Serapeum. I see the Serapeum like the pyramids. So pyramids and Giza are many times used, and there is tombs,
Yeah.
there is titles, there is stela, there is inscriptions on the necropolis itself. But this, for me, doesn't make anything with pyramid itself. So it is, I see the same. And so
like for example, the staircase, for example, just considering the staircase alone of like making a new entrance.
Again,
like,
I see that I don't mind to have changes and updates and innovation in the tunnels, because this is what actually we are doing it till today. So we are building scaffolding and frameworks and so on. If we want to go in every detail, I don't mind at all if we have time.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
So
I understand. I understand. But
Yeah.
changes is possible. I don't mind any changes at all.
Uh-huh.
No, I mean,
actually have a whole bunch of slides that I would love to discuss. Either in this, it sounds like Chris, you don't have much time. You talked about doing a part 2 in the future where we can look at the precision of the boxes. I would love to go deep into that.
Yeah, I don't think this is. I really don't think there is enough time. But and I think that it would be beneficial if we just, end this on a very friendly note, with the promise that I will email you and maybe point you in a direction that you hadn't considered going before. But it would actually be a reflection of my state of mind and what I understand about what is going on, not necessarily what was going on, in the dynastic Egypt, but what is going on today in the YouTube, the YouTube culture and the things that. The way things are discussed and debated. So
it gets pretty wild, doesn't it?
It's gotten a little toxic, and I don't want to add to the toxicity.
Totally.
But I would like to present to you an example of how evidence can be corrupted in any period of time, whether it's pre-dynastic, dynastic, whatever period of time. And I don't question at all that what the evidence that you have presented, I don't question at all that was not the dynastic Egyptians that created that. That is not a question for me. But what I would like to present is the corruption of one of my photographs in the modern time. If I could share my screen, and maybe we could discuss that. Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, let's maybe we were starting to slide a little too far into the historical components. You are an engineer, Chris, and your work has been about precision stone cutting, and so I have a lot to say about that too, and a lot of slides and stuff. Like I said, it might have to be saved for a future episode, but I would love to take a deeper look into that with you for sure.
Okay. Hold on. Is it this one? Hold and shift to select multiple. Oh, I don't want to select multiple. Let me see if that one.
Milo's gone again.
I'll zoom to share your screen.
Now.
Okay, so I haven't done this before. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll tell you what. I think maybe I won't share.
See your screen. We cannot see your screen,
no,
Chris.
I'll include that in my email to you all, and then maybe we can pick up the conversation at another time.
Well, so can I just ask one last question before we kind of wrap this up?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So, after seeing scientists against myths create a core drill with a spiral, and after seeing Olga from scientists against myths make a diorite vase with a bone, like using bone, and knowing that a spinning tube drill with a weight will naturally create orthogonal angles. It will create 90-degree angles just on its own. What leads you to make the conclusion that a lost ancient high technology would be required to produce these when we're seeing, these experiments by people who don't have lineages of ancestry that have been practicing this, doing it on their first tries, basically? Like, what is leading you to think that a lost technology is required to explain it?
Well, the evidence as I have looked at it, and the evidence as it has been portrayed by others, I have a difference of opinion in how a kind of a reverse engineering project should proceed in terms of well, let's put it this way. My company, the company I work for, a customer would bring in a piece of an engine, and they would tell us, I don't have any drawings on this, but I would want you to make one exactly like it. Okay. So basically what we do is we take it, we subject it to measurements, and create drawings from the original piece, and then we manufacture it. We send it to the customer. If it is varies just a little bit, then they would object, especially when it comes to precision. In terms of the Petri core number 7, I know that scientists against myth have produced a core, and I know that they have claimed that that core has horizontal grooves on it. They've also made a claim that the Petri core has horizontal grooves on it, and attempted to discredit both Petri and myself in our observations of that core. Okay, so we take that, and then we take the work of Dennis Stocks, and you have his book, no doubt, and the articles that he published in the Ancient Egypt magazine, and nowhere in his experimental drilling process or in the lead up to it does he describe the core number 7 in the Petri Museum, even though he was aware of it. He cites Petri in his book and in his articles, but why didn't he actually present a photograph of that core before he did his experiment? And why is he unwilling to put his core next to the original so that a guy like me, a manufacturing engineer, can look at both of them and compare them to see if he had actually found a method that reproduced that original core? So a lot of confusion has been introduced, and I would actually recommend that you take a look at the Scientists Against Myth. Have you read their paper on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have their paper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they send that paper to me, and essentially, it fell apart after the second page. It was I knew that it was not correct. The methodology that they employed is not correct. They took a 2D photograph of a 3D core, And all the drunken screw that Petrie described just got a little drunker because of the corruption of the evidence. See, it's all about evidence. And if you're going to change the evidence, then you lose your argument. The the lines that they describe on a you've got two things going for you there. You've got the reduction of the arc length. The chord length replaces the arc length when you're looking at it if you lay them out, right? And you've got a series of crowns. Moreover, if you look at that core with the from a 2D photograph, and you're looking at a cone actually, and you focus your camera on the center line, that will appear horizontal, but for every line that goes up or every line that goes down, it begins to curve. Okay, that's a corruption of evidence. We do not, in manufacturing, we do not submit 2D photographic evidence to describe geometric features to our customers. That method, it would never be used because of those.
Wait, I'm sorry though, but in your book, don't you show photos of the Ramses statue and use the same thing to compare the?
See, that's the thing, and you don't understand the differences between one circumstance and the other. The Ramses
I'm just
statue,
trying to understand what you're saying, because like
no, I'm going to explain it to
Yeah.
you. Sorry, it's two different things. You see, what in the Ramses statue, and I say very clearly that these are preliminary studies, but basically what I'm doing is I'm comparing the geometry that appears from a photograph, knowing that there could be distortions of accuracy, and that future scans using 3D photography would be necessary in order to know fully the accurate geometry of the piece. But basically, I'm comparing one side to another, and so the distortions on the same distortions on one side that are introduced by the camera, whether it's the lens of the camera or the lensing, or whether it's the angle that you're on, whether you're pointing a little up a little bit or down a little bit, that all of that changes the geometry, but it will be the same on both sides. And so I'm just comparing one side to another. Okay.
Okay.
When you're photographing a cone, a 3D cone, and you're applying geometry to the outside, in manufacturing, in the aerospace industry, we have to, we have to keep in mind all the time that something that is laid flat and then wrapped into a cone, the geometry of any feature on the outside is going to change. And that's just the pure geometry of it. Now, when you start taking 2D photographs of that cone, then you will get other changes too. I'll send you a package. It will be helpful, I think, for you to not take my word for it. It might be helpful for you to seek counsel from somebody else, maybe a trusted professor, maybe a scientist, a mathematician, engineer of your own choosing. I think that would be very helpful to you. But essentially, I would say that the scientist against myth, even though they use science in their title, they may be scientists, but their methodology is wrong.
I guess like even if they're not producing the same core structure like spiral, and their methodology is wrong, that they're still using primitive tools to reach results that are in the ballpark of what we're seeing, and to myself, like, can be like, it's not a far leap to say that like generations of people that have been practicing this could do it with those same tools exponentially better. And so I guess I still don't quite
I
know why.
disagree. I totally, wholeheartedly disagree with that.
Let's give me a chance, please. Here, the point is, Casey, that you say a good statement like 30 minutes ago. You say that you notice that these artifacts can be done by primitive tools, and here there is a basic question we ask: what is the definition of done? So how do you define done? Is it so core drills? This actually was in granite, was done like in 1995. So no question about making a core drill with copper tools since 30 years. The question is, what exactly is the features of this core? So the main feature, if we make a core drill, we must compare it with the original one. And this is actually when you see the core drill, even in Petrie's book, he mentioned that 2.5 millimeter with deviation 0.25, if I remember correctly. So, and this is actually a turning point, because how are you going to reach these 2.5 millimeter? That's why Petrie said you have to put about 1 ton of pressure on top. So it is not like if I did it today, okay, then I'm closer. I will do it. It will give the same result, because we are not following the right approach. We need to think differently how we can reach these 2.5 millimeter. So what the problem? What happened is that the people are criticizing this 2.5 millimeter and said, no, it is not 2.5 millimeter. It is just whatever. It is just microns. Or so instead of trying to reach the artifact with the right quality, and this is the definition of done with the right quality, they criticizing the object itself. We know that, for example, you go to Memphis. Yeah? You went to Memphis, right? Where the giant statue of Ramses.
No, we didn't. No,
we didn't. You didn't. Okay, there is a box. There is a box, a granite box. That we are 100% sure. I think you will find also a picture in President's book. Everyone is 100% sure that this was done with the right balls, the right bound, and then you hit it, because it is just not accurate, and you will notice it when you say it by yourself. So when people say done, yeah, we know that many things can be done by that, but we are not looking for it. We need to achieve the high quality. Regarding your vase, I would like also to provide answers for every point. Regarding the vase, it took 2 years from 2 people. I really appreciate the work. Olga is amazing lady. She did a lot of work, but we're talking about 2 years, 2 people to produce a 15 centimeter vessel, which is even not complete, because they didn't finish the polishing of it. So let's add like more 6 months for polishing or whatever. Then we are talking about 2.5 years with 2 people just for 15 centimeters. And by the way, we still didn't apply the proper measure for inside and outside using a scanning tool. It was just measuring using a ruler. I saw the video. So it was not like correctly assessed, or at least the minimum assessment that we can say, okay, this is the method.
I guess for me, it's like, these are their first attempts at making this, and the fact that they are getting it in basically the ballpark of what we're talking about is not a testament to like, that there was power tools used, but just that this is the first iteration without having a whole lineage of knowledge of how to do it. So that's my, I guess, thought on that.
Because even the word power
tools. Can I jump in here too, guys? I wanna share a few thoughts if you don't mind. I think that what Ahmed and Chris, what you're saying is that some of these primitive experiments are not producing artifacts that are as precise as what you are measuring in ancient Egypt.
And the features.
So we need to look at the features that are the most precise from an engineering perspective, the most high quality, the best 90-degree orthogonal angles and perfectly flat surfaces and geometrically symmetrical, artifacts. And so what I would say to address that is that from an extended last years and years and years of continual research from many different people, from what I can witness, the precision is not very evident in the boxes in the Serapeum. Chris, for example, you've measured one box. There's 24 total boxes, and I have a whole slideshow that we could look at. And unfortunately, you say you don't have enough time right now to look at it. So I would love to perhaps go through that. I mean, all this stuff could take hours to talk about, but I've seen many different photos that I can show you using, in one case, actually on the NEXT tour with you, Chris, your precision square in the box with NEXT inside filming, and they put it up, and you can see gaps of light shining underneath the surface where it's very clearly not as precise as perfect
Milo,
orthogonal angles.
I would like to ask you something. In the video of Science Against Myth, they went to measure granite seats, right?
Granite, wow.
None of them, all of them is 0.3, 0.6, 0.5 deviations. Again, these angles doesn't mean anything. We know that these granite seats was manufactured like 40 years ago or 30 years ago with power tools, and everyone know that even power tools there's tolerance, right? So even modern machines have tolerance, and so why we're arguing about Serapeum, but again, the granite seats that created 40 years ago have the same deviation and the same tolerance, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's measuring like random pieces of concrete in like St. Petersburg or something like that. So these aren't precision artifacts. These are like...
It was not concrete, right? As far as I remember, it was granite seats. It was not concrete.
I remember him measuring concrete. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. But my point is that I don't believe that the artifacts are as precise as you believe they are. Respectfully, based on the evidence that I've seen, I would say that they are not as precise. And I have a lot of photos to demonstrate that idea. I mean, you can look at the outside of the boxes, the inside of the boxes, the corners. There's been multiple teams of people in the Serapeum, for example. There's photogrammetry results from a guy called Martin Marcis or something of that nature from Slovakia. Maybe you've seen his work as well, analyzing even the faces, the geometry in the faces. There's deviations up to like 0.5 centimeter sometimes based on, say, the geometry of the cheekbones. The Core 7 from Petrie, I believe it's not a spiral groove, a continual spiral groove. I think it's a bunch of disjointed lines with a spiral tendency. And there's some fantastic work like from a channel called Night Scarab. Have you guys seen his work? He analyzes it very deeply. We could go on for hours discussing the details, but I'm just trying to summarize.
You've already gone on for hours, and I appreciate that. I've seen all the videos and the photographs of the that you took, or somebody took in the Serapeum. Did you take any measurements yourself? Oh,
no, we did not.
Other people. Okay. So the couple of things I have to say about that is that I agree with you. The boxes in the Serapeum are not as precise as what that photograph that I took, the photograph of me, seemed to imply. Okay. There are deviations at the bottom of the box. There are areas where you will find gaps. We don't know what the manufacturers or the customers' requirements were when making the box. I mean, as a manufacturer, we have to have requirements in order to work with tolerances that are acceptable. It seems to me that there are what we would consider to be micron precision was not required throughout the entire box. Maybe at the top, and also maybe just on the inside. So granted, it is what it is. There are imperfections that exist. There are imperfections that exist in every manufactured item. You're going to find areas in a manufactured item that have high tolerances and others that don't. It depends on the purpose for it. So there's no argument to that. No argument to that. But even if you go and ask the question, okay, so we found a 2,000 of an inch gap with our straight edge. Does that totally dismiss the importance of the box? Or does that say, oh, look, this is not within the 2/10,000ths of an inch that Chris Dunn's straight edge was cut to, so therefore Chris Dunn must have cheated or lied? Because that is what is going on now.
For me, all it says is that the ancient Egyptians were really good at working with stone. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything more
what
than
I'm
that.
saying is that you are we are failing to address when we evaluate these artifacts is a range of metrology instruments that will be necessary to bring them to the condition that they are now, as imperfect as they may be in places, and that the outside of the box is not as important as the inside of the box. So, it's kind of like we have granite surface plates at Danville Metal Stamping. If we had a guy, we have specialists that come in and resurface our surface plates. These are what we use them as datums for measuring precise parts. Mm. So if we had a guy come in to resurface a surface plate and inspect it, and he spent an hour or so inspecting the outside of the surface plate, putting a square on the corners, looking at the underside of it, and we would assume that he didn't know what he was doing and wasting time. So, if we don't know what the customer requirements are, we can't make assumptions on that. The outside of the box clearly are imprecise.
I have an idea. What if the insides were created so perfectly because one of the aspects of the god Osiris came from the composite god Ptah, and Ptah was the god of craftsmanship and stoneworking and metallurgy and things of that nature? What if they wanted the bulls to be buried inside of a box that was so remarkably well crafted that was simply it? Like maybe there doesn't need to be any hermetic seal or any high technology or crystal growing or anything extraordinary, but simply an Occam's razor approach could say, okay, look at all the evidence. There's all these stelae describing the burial of bulls. Maybe they just wanted to consecrate these burials to their god, the most sacred god in history for them. And this went on for over 1,000 years. And what if they just made those boxes so remarkably well crafted as a spiritual and religious purpose and had nothing technological to do with it at all? Are you open to that idea?
I want the truth, and there's a lot of wild imaginations going on, probably on both sides. My thoughts are futuristic. Okay. I look into the future and I see the development of technologies and science. And so basically I'm immersed in technology. As far as the study of those boxes, maybe, I proposed, there's many theories out there. I proposed one in my most recent book. It's futuristic. It could be considered science fiction, okay? And maybe fantasy thinking. So I would admit that, there are fantasies on both sides, and some on my side, and I think also on your side. And it's just a matter of, what has shaped us, what our state of mind is, and when we are faced with something in nature or in the world or in life, we interpret it in different ways based on our background. And we are seemingly, right now, we are totally on opposite sides of a solution.
I want to be
I'm not
clear,
saying,
Chris, I don't feel like I'm on any opposite side. I want to, my position on all this is like we're all on the same side, and that is in the discovery of truth. And if we're all dedicated to the
Totally.
discovery of truth, like I'm not on anybody else. Like but I
We're
totally
on the
agree.
same team.
And I want to like kind of maybe wrap this up with this idea that like the thing that we all know for sure is there's many aspects, whether it's a lost technology of like a physical kind or a lost technology of the mind or the spiritual religious practices. There's a lot about the ancient people that we don't know, and that there is a lot of practices and thought forms that are foreign to us and unthinkable to us now. And so I think this is one thing that we can kind of all keep in mind is like uh, we're all kind of in the dark about the true purpose of how the Egyptians saw these things and or the builders of the Serapeum saw these things. And that is something that we can all revel in, is that mystery, and continue to look at it with a sense of reverence and gratitude for this opportunity to be in such a mystery.
Well said. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
we are all on the same team, huh? We should see each other
I
as
would like
friends
to
and
think so.
allies.
I would like to
Yeah.
think, yeah.
Let's do that then, huh? Like there's too much opposition in this world. There's too much war and hatred and misunderstanding and pointing fingers and arguing. And we're not really wanting to participate in any of that. We want to make friends and connections and learn. And like you said, look for the truth.
So
And
are
there
you,
doesn't need to be any animosity in that process at all.
no, no, I agree. Uh, it's very difficult though when somebody calls you a liar
Totally.
or say that you have faked and fudged measurements,
Yeah.
as they have me, and so I can't say that I'm 100% objective when it comes to certain uh, certain commentators
Yeah.
on YouTube who have attacked me and defamed my character
Yeah.
and accused me of faking and fudging measurements, and some of those people are your friends. So I'm talking to you now because you approached me respectfully, uh, and you have not insulted me in your videos, and you are complimentary in your videos. So you do have a certain honesty that I thought that I could work with.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say, from a philosophical perspective, I am a great believer in Cartesian philosophy. So the physical evidence, the material science, the measurements are everything. Data is everything. So the more data we get, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah.
And no, it's yeah. You it's good for us to challenge each other and to stress a point of view. I think it makes it has certainly in my path it has caused me to look for more evidence or be a little more diligent in how I explain things. And I have to confess that as an engineer, and and I think actually Ahmed is a lot better at this than myself. Is a very, very kind individual. He comes off as very kind. I can come off as being a grouchy old man. Um, you know, but but I also recognize too that engineers um, may not necessarily explain everything completely, and it takes many, many years. It took me many, many years to learn what I know, and I can't convey that in a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Um, and I wrote my book for engineers, and if I had gone into some of the more basic and fundamental principles of engineering, they would have assumed that I was patronizing. So, in fact, there was one the guy, and he was a he was a tool and die maker, and it was on the Ramsey statue, and he said that. He said, "Oh, well, why did you spend 3 chapters on Ramses? I got it in the first chapter. You didn't have to keep going on and on about it." And yeah, I was passionate. And so, the thing is now is that yeah, you notice a certain perfection in something, you say, hey, you point out the perfection. And somebody else comes along and says, oh, wait a minute, I've measured it. It's not as perfect as you say it is. The question is that, okay, so how do you resolve those issues? And in manufacturing, you have differences of opinion all the time. I worked for 28 years on the shop floor, so I was making products, making parts, tools, dies, machine building, you name it. And all the time there was disputes on what was precise, or whether a part measured one way or measured another way. Sometimes you would have to resolve those issues by bringing in a customer sometimes to make a call, because things would get rather contentious. So there's always dispute. There's always conflict. The question is, how do you address it? And when I say conflict can be seen as a negative thing, or it can be seen as a positive thing. We hope that following this, it will be seen as a positive thing. Yeah. Maybe we can, bring down the temperature and clean up the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. I think the internet is unfortunately a breeding ground for all kinds of our kind of most impulsive and worst behaviors. We want to attack each other, and we're all tough guys behind the keyboard, but like if we were all spending time just face to face, meeting each other in person, I think we'd all be like friends and having a nice time and talking about this in a very cool temperature, as you said. So that's definitely our goal, is to share these kind of conversations for the benefit of learning, and maybe actually change the culture online, because like we're presenting the works of people like Scientists Against Myths and Sacred Geometry Decoded, which, let's be honest, and we've even said this to Sacred Geometry Decoded directly, that yeah, he's being a total asshole. And there's just really in my opinion, it's not really helping this environment of learning and sharing and productivity. And maybe sometimes in order to change our mind, it helps to not have somebody coming at us with like an attack, because then we just put up our defense, and there's like a psychological impasse that ends up happening. And so, yeah, I mean, we had a talk recently with Alan from Sacred Geometry Decoded. I would say he's a friend of ours, but we've told him, yeah, like he's being too rough, like
he knows
really
he's
helping.
an asshole though. He even said himself that he's an asshole, and he revels in that. But so it's.
Yeah, we're just trying to take a different approach.
It is.
So thank you again, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
By the way,
very
before
helpful.
I leave, all of you are welcome to come to Danville, and I will take you around the plant and show you manufacturing, and give you
awesome.
some instruction on, you'll get a better feel for it. It's an environment. It's environmental conditioning, and the environmental conditioning, it depends where you spend your time, right? Mm-hmm. So you spend your time on the internet, then you're going to be conditioned in one way. Mm-hmm. But in the real world, if you are making parts that people's lives depend on, that things have to be a little more disciplined. And you guys are the future. I mean, I'm almost at the exit right now, so you'll be cleaning up the internet, not me, but it needs to be cleaned up for sure. And And on that point, I think you know, with every technology there is it's a double-edged sword. You've got a negative and a positive, right? And the people sometimes take some time to get used to new technologies and how to use it. So it's early days yet. So Ahmed, I'll leave the last word to you.
Yeah, so I'm glad that I was hosted in this call, gentlemen. I watched many of your videos before, not just like 2 weeks ago when I knew that I will be invited, but I follow your work since long, and I appreciate your kindness and that you are very decent. I really appreciate that, and I'm looking even for more discussions, even without recording, right? So we can discuss openly and freely, and share. I would love also to see your slides. What are you going to present? I would like to share some of my thoughts too, so that I'm sure that we will do this one day, right?
Yeah, and
Sure, yeah. Let's keep the
definitely
conversation
get a email
going.
thread going.
Yeah.
So, Milo, when are you going to be back in the States?
Well, I might be back later this year, and your neighborhood isn't that far from Oregon, so maybe we'll just have to take a drive out to the east and come visit you.
Well,
Who
you
knows?
should.
You never know.
You should. You'd be more than welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it would be. I think it would be good. I'll try and sort out an air-conditioned yurt for you if you're coming in the summer.
Nice. If only you guys knew what kind of windy stuff was happening around me during this call.
Well, sweet.
But yeah, let's keep
Casey,
this
where are you
conversation
located,
going.
Casey?
I'm in Oregon.
You're in Oregon. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can come anytime.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And likewise, if you're ever out this way, I would love to host you and show you around, and you're more than welcome here.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic.
And we'll all have to go to Egypt and visit Ahmed too.
Yeah.
I want to come back at some point. For sure.
Ahmed is in Germany, so
okay.
but he's in Egypt quite frequently. He's got a couple of projects going on there. But Ahmed, you're welcome to come to Danville anytime too.
Yeah, and actually, I might be in Germany in the next couple of months, so we'll
really just
maybe we'll have to meet up, and yeah, cool. It'd be great to meet you in person. Well, guys, thank you so much. I feel like we could talk for hours. Chris, originally you said we might want to at some point do a part 2. I'm very open to that. Let's let that seed be planted and see if that wants to happen at some point. But thank you for taking your time to speak with us. And if you guys have any final thoughts, let's just wrap it up. And then once we stop recording, we can have the final sign off. Any final things you want to say?
I think I've talked enough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Cool. All right. And thank you to all of our subscribers. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, join us on Patreon, buy us a coffee and all that good stuff. And we'll see you in the next episode. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.